Welcome, Japan.
Welcome to another edition of Why Come Japan. I'm your host, Mr. Radrey, where I interview creatives in or outside of Japan. This time, I can say inside Japan. Can I say that, Jason?
Sure.
Yeah, inside Japan, where we talk about doing creative things here. You're probably those of you who are watching the show probably are wondering why I have a very red neck. Well, it's because I was shaving and I kind of did it way too fast. So, thumbs up for rednecks. Anyway, so on my show today is Taisha Jason. But I've been in Japan too long. I'm saying Shin. Taisha Jason, also known as My Argonauts, also known as Jason's All Sumo channel.
Yes, I think it's.
Is that right? What are your three channels? You have like about three of them, right?
Yeah, well, Taisha J, you shouldn't even mention that one. That one's it's just that's my email and like my long. That's the town I used to live in Shimane. But My Argonauts is my main channel that was for years, and then recently most of my attention has been on my Sumo channel, which is if you just type in Jason and Sumo, you'll find it.
Jason Sumo. Yeah. Darn, I should have retitled this episode the Jason Sumo, because I don't know. I thought Taisha. I can't even say this anymore. Taisha Jason was your handle, because I went to go.
Taisha Jason is my main Twitter. If people want to go at Taisha Jason, that's my life Twitter, and then I also have, of course, a Twitter devoted to Sumo, which is Sumo_Jason. Right.
So I'm getting a lot of your videos nowadays just focus on sumo commentary. Is that right?
Yeah, I spend most of my time nowadays when I'm on YouTube on my Sumo channel. I rarely make videos for the My Argonauts channel anymore. I kind of lost steam on it, and I go back to it about once or twice a year now.
Well, because YouTube's really evolved now, so it probably makes sense why you haven't used it, because it's not as fun as it used to be, Do you agree with that?
Oh. In 2007, I started making videos. In 2008, my channel was popular. That's 10 years ago now. Mm-hmm. So, I'm sorry, but you were saying what's lost steam?
I thought maybe there's a connection issue there for a minute. No, it seems like YouTube's become a different beast. I love saying this. So if you watch any of my other videos, I always say YouTube's become a different beast. But I really think it has.
Yeah, it's the community aspect of it and the vlogging aspect of it is now very secondary to many other things that seem to take precedence on the channel. And but I still think it's there for you if you want to do that. I just think that now, 10 years on, it feels like everything's been done. To find a niche now where you can kind of get in and it can be your own space, and maybe you're the first person to talk about this or do something. It's what hasn't been done on YouTube at this point,
Yeah, no, there's definitely the push for having higher quality videos nowadays, and demanding that the more you put up on the site, the better.
Yeah, definitely daily, or at least 2 or 3 times a week now is almost a necessity if you want to maintain an audience, and I certainly can't vlog at that pace anymore. I just have too much else going on.
Who can keep up with that? Yeah. So let me ask you something. What originally got you interested in sumo?
In sumo, it's pretty oft-repeated story, but basically I moved to Japan in 2004.
Wait a minute. Can I just find this out by watching one of your videos? I feel awful saying this now.
No. But I've been interviewed about sumo a few times on different podcasts and whatnot. So
really?
I apologize to people.
Wait, before you move on, I'm sorry to interrupt. No. But what other podcast have you been on where you talked about sumo?
I've been on ALT Insider. I've been on.
Okay, I know him, James.
Busan Kevin's.
Busan Kevin, yeah.
I've been on. I did one specifically for a sumo site called tachiai.org.
Oh, okay.
I think those 3 are within recent memory. Yeah.
Okay, I know all of them except for the last one.
Yeah. And,
all right.
I've chatted with Give Me a Break Man. One time we did a video about sitting in a shrine. We were about to go see Sumo the next day. We talked about Sumo. Yeah, I've never been on 2.5 Oyaji, those bastards.
What? You've never been on the show? Oh, they're always like looking for guests sometimes. I guess you just got to get them at the right time, the right place.
I always say they have rural bias.
Do they?
They only like people in Tokyo.
Mm.
But yeah, so anyway, I came to Japan in 2004. I was a JET in the Japan Exchange Teaching Program, which I'm sure you've heard of.
Yeah.
I lived in very rural Shimane. I had like 5 channels on my television. This was pre-YouTube, pre-iTunes, where you could rent movies, all that kind of stuff. I had no access to any kind of English entertainment, but I would come home from work at about 4:30 in the afternoon, and Sumo was on, in Sumo months, because it's on 6 times a year. And if you touch a button on your remote control in Japan, you can change some programs into English, like the news and Sumo. So I just started to watch it just to hear English, just to have that oasis of an hour of like, hey, I understand what's being said to me. And then I got into the sport because it is much more than you think it is when you just watch it on the surface, or you just go as a tourist one time. There's a lot of intricacies to it, tradition. The wrestlers are all very interesting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so it just sort of became one of these things where if you didn't want to watch the news, it was Sumo.
Yeah, well, and
okay.
English. I mean, really, just to be able to watch something on my TV that wasn't weird variety shows.
Yeah. Yeah, those
samurai drama,
Yeah, I don't know. Japanese TV, like sometimes you're watching, like, man, I could watch this for hours, and then after you start watching for hours, you're like, I don't know if I can keep on watching food being eaten by people. Yeah. And it's just like you start making fun of them after a while.
Yeah.
I don't know. Didn't America have variety shows at one time?
Sure. I mean,
like where they had a bunch of celebrities all trying stuff, but it didn't take off, right? Because obviously we don't have it today.
Back in the day, I mean, if we're talking like Ed Sullivan and
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I mean, back then, yeah, it was huge, but it definitely died out and it never really came back. I mean, now it would be the equivalent of Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon or one of the Jimmys.
Yeah.
That's kind of where it shifted to now.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so you kind of grew from there, and then you got interested in all the little subtleties, and you still keep up with all of it. And
I went to see it live, which was really fun in 2005 with a group of friends. And then I just sort of, when I started to vlog, every now and then I would make a Sumo video, not very often, and I was really bad at it. And I had a terrible TV, and I was a little Casio, camera that I would.
Oh, right.
But they got hundreds and hundreds of hits because it was in English, and then eventually thousands of hits. And so when I left Japan in 2009, I had to go home for a year. I finished JET after 5 years, the maximum. And then I came back in 2010. I got a job at a university. And when I came back, I was like, I think I'm going to just separate the two, because I was increasingly enjoying my Sumo coverage, but I knew the people that were on my Argonauts channel were like, it's not, we don't want that to flood our feed, every other month. So I made a whole separate channel, and then that increasingly has taken my attention, and I've waned off on the other.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, I guess you've always been interested in Sumo. I mean, ever since like the early days of YouTube when we first connected, because you were actually the first YouTuber I ever met. Like you and Hiko Simon and Cruxay doesn't make videos anymore. That video still exists.
It does, yeah. I think it's on Hiko's channel, and maybe I even have a little bit of it on my channel somewhere in the archives.
Yeah, so who do you watch nowadays? Do you watch anybody?
In the community here in Japan?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, just in general, really.
I mean, my favorite channels are movie channels, because I'm really into movies, like Collider, Screen Junkies. But that's kind of like my window into pop culture in America and stuff. Here, I still do watch Oyaji every now and then. I'll watch the occasional Victor video. Hiko Simon, Tokyo Tonight every now and then. I watched your interview with the French photographer, A couple, was that about a week ago? Stuff will come around, but no, I mean, I'm not. Oh, I guess Chris Broad, is that his name? The Abroad in Japan channel. He's biking around Japan right now. I'll watch him. I have patience with him. But to be honest, I mean, you've been here a while. I've been here a while. I can only watch. I can't. Well, that's not true. I can't really watch. Oh, let's go visit a shrine, or here's my first time ever in Kyoto, or I can't watch those vlogs anymore. Because I've done it and I've seen it, and it's old.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't really watch any Japanese vloggers anymore. I mean, like, some of them are my friends, but I don't know. The stuff that they make is not something that I'm going to go out of my way to go watch.
There's a guy on Twitter named Dogen, Dogen.
Oh, Dogen, yeah, he's pretty.
He makes these little short things, mostly about language, that are really funny. I really like him, but I've never watched him on YouTube. I always just watch him via Twitter. I've
seen him before. I went to like a play, and I saw him like sitting in the audience. I'm like, he looks strikingly familiar. Where have I seen him before? And it was him. Anyway,
did you say hello?
No, I didn't know who it was.
Oh, okay.
It's like I just look at him like, that guy looks so familiar, but I have no idea who it is.
Yeah.
Where have I seen this face before?
I think if I were near Tokyo or like you in Tokyo, you're in Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I would go to the events, the Hanan, what is it, the viewing party and the little YouTube party that they have. And I would try to be a bit more in the community, but I'm so far away from all of that. I've never been able to really get away and get to it. So, yeah, Well,
it seems like, I don't know. Yeah, there's nobody really I go out of my way to watch, because it's like you were saying, everything's really competing for your attention nowadays.
Yeah.
Because I'm like more kind of curious, like, what people want from me. I mean, like, I have to ask people, like, it kind of feels like teaching in a weird way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like, when you're teaching and you realize your lessons just suck, and sometimes because you'll notice, because like your students won't look at you, and they'll just kind of like do their own thing, or they'll start drawing cartoons or whatever, and you're like, huh, okay, I gotta change this around a little bit. But I
don't mind this. I don't mind sitting in front of my computer and pretending it's an audience and talking. And I don't even mind having my camera out in like the Sumo arena or walking down the street and pointing it at my face and talking and saying something about where I am or whatever. But what I don't have the time for anymore, or really the patience, because they've changed the program like 3 times on me now, is to edit. I don't have time to put the vlog clips together and make a 10-minute video that's assembled of 4 or 5 different parts. And, people are always on me like, Jason, explain Sumo to us and put little pictures of all the wrestlers up over your shoulder so we know who they are. Blah, blah. Like, I don't have time for that stuff.
You have to hire an editor for that.
I sit in front of my TV. I hit the button on my iPad. We watch the Sumo match. I talk about it in real time. I hit click. It's off. I upload it. I label it. I'm done. I mean, that's about it. But I do it 15 days in a row every day. Yeah. So it's a lot of work for 2 weeks. But then I don't think about it for 6 weeks, and then I come back to it, vlogging now, I just wouldn't have the patience to make. And I used to be a pro at iMovie. I mean, I don't know Final Cut and all those other things, but now I try to use iMovie and it just baffles me.
So, really? Okay, yeah, because I've completely stepped away from iMovie and Final Cut Pro. Now I just use Adobe Premiere, because that's the closest thing.
Else.
But even that one's it's a bit of a learning curve as well.
Yeah.
But well, let's talk about so you're a university teacher now, right?
I did. I came back in 2010 and taught at a university for 5 years, but I don't have a master's degree, so there's a limited amount you can ascend, and I was never going to become a full-time professor. Didn't want to spend the money on getting a master's degree. But my degree originally is in history. I graduated from UCSD in America with a degree in American history and a minor in Japanese studies. But, you end up teaching English because that's what you do here, right?
Yeah.
So a job offer came along for a school in another part of Japan, finally, that wasn't Shimane, because I taught at a university in Shimane. So had been in Shimane for 10 years. And the job was to teach history at a school where the kids are studying everything in English. And it's called the IB program, the International Baccalaureate program. It's a special like high school diploma they get that lets them very easily get into college in a foreign country if that's what they choose to do. So I have to teach some English, of course, but I also now teach 10th, 11th, and 12th grade history. And I'm very, very happy. It's way better. It's a private school. It's a small school. But the kids, I can talk to you like I'm talking now, and they understand me. That's full on. Their English is amazing, and
you don't have to like slow down your English or anything.
No, I mean we, idioms and certain hard words, especially in history. You're unpacking World War I or World War II. There's going to be lots of words, but in general, they keep up with me, and I'm very, very pleased with my position now. I wish it paid better. But maybe that'll come around. I've been there almost 3 years now, so I do get bonuses and things like that. So overall, I'm pretty happy.
Right. Okay. Well, give me a little bit of a timeline of your stint here in Japan, because you originally came here as a JET, right?
Right. So JET is Japan Exchange and Teaching. You graduate college, you come here and teach in a public school. Usually they either stick you in a high school or a junior high. I got stuck in a junior high. You sometimes also have to do elementary school. So I've done like every level now, from elementary to university, of teaching in Japan. And so I did 5 years as a JET until 2009, went home for a year, came back in 2010. 2010 to 2016, I'm at the university. And then 2016 to now, I'm at the private school where all the kids learn everything in English. And the whole time Sumo's been there, so that's been good. I've always joked that I wanted to stay in Japan until 2020 because that's when the Olympics come. So I'll be 50 next year, so that's another kind of big thing. I'll probably stay past 2020. I just like it here. I'm not incredibly social. I don't speak Japanese particularly great, but it's just become home, and it's very safe. It's very quiet. The people are very friendly to me. I know that sounds weird, but it's sort of true. Not that it's not friendly in America, but I hate to say it because people are like, oh, but I mean, they do treat you a little different. I'm a big guy. I look like Santa Claus sometimes, so.
You ever gotten any Santa Claus jobs? I've gotten a few.
Yeah. I used to get paid $100 to do Santa for an hour.
That's not bad.
Iowa. Yeah.
You Santa Claus?
I'll have to send you some pictures. Obviously fake people and everything, but I've got Ellie and I just like Japan. It's funny because I thought about it the other day. I'm like, what do I really miss about America other than, my sister and my dad?
Star Wars, I guess, or the Beatles. I guess the Beatles from England, but yeah.
And it's really just food, that and maybe the weather, the no insulation, no central heating thing here, no air conditioning.
Yeah, that I can't stand that stuff.
That really bothers me, but I've learned to live with it, obviously, or else I wouldn't still be here. So.
Well, I mean, I guess for the biggest thing for me, it's like really, it's like there's the healthcare.
Yeah,
that's always really good, and transportation is also really good. But I mean, I don't know. You're out in the countryside, so you have to like use a car out there, right?
I do. I've driven since I first got here. I have a decent car. I rent it or lease it. I should have just bought one by now because I've been here so long, but you never know. So yeah, a guy actually in Shimane still leases me my car, and my rent's not bad. Plus, it's a little bit subsidized by the school. I have a fairly nice place because I'm out in the boonies. So, it's not near as bad as I'm sure you have to pay.
That's all right. I mean, I do all right for myself. I'm not a big fan of driving, so that's why I like living here.
Okay.
I mean, if I really loved driving, I'd probably want to live out somewhere in the countryside. But
where in America were you from?
I'm from Colorado.
Okay.
You're from San Diego, right? California, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's funny. I hadn't been back in 4 years. I finally went back this summer. And driving for about a day was weird because, I'm used to the other side of the road. But your brain clicks over and you remember. But
like riding a bicycle?
Sort of. God, I haven't done that in a really long time. I wonder if I still can.
Well, yeah, that's kind of sometimes the same way. Like sometimes, like, oh shoot, how do I ride a bicycle again? Oh yeah, that's right. That's how you do this.
Yeah. So what are you doing now that's not YouTube? How do you pay your bills?
Well, I work in an international school where I teach returnee children.
So you're kind of like their English is a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean it's I don't have to listen to so much accented English that hurts my ears. No offense to the students, but you can only listen to so much of that before you go nuts.
Well, I'm a homeroom teacher this year, which means
nice homeroom teacher. Wow.
Yeah, that I have added responsibilities, and the homeroom that I have is half the advanced program where they're all in English, and half of the kids are normal kids, and so I have a Japanese teacher that does it with me, so she covers stuff that has to happen in Nihongo. And my Japanese is okay. I joke about it, but it's okay. And it's just funny though because they'll come up and try to talk to me in English and stuff, and the extra O at the end of words and everything. Just it still kind of gets to me, and I wish I could erase katakana English from existence.
Yeah, right. I started to teach writing, which I really enjoy a lot, but I don't think the kids enjoy it as much as I do. But it's fun to being able to figure out what it is you're doing right and what it is you're doing wrong.
Yeah,
and like having a YouTube audience that you can see, like I said earlier.
Well, I took over a class in my university, and they're like, okay, well, there's no real rules. You can kind of teach anything. They just have to come, and you have to do oral activities, and they have to listen, and they wanted all 4 bases covered. I'm like, okay, well, can I just teach them about the Beatles for a semester? And they're like, okay. And so
well, that's not bad.
I just taught them the Beatles from 1962 to 1970. We just went album by album, and and I did all this research, and they'd have to do presentations on okay, it's 1966, the Beatles brought out Revolver, and this is what's going on in the rest of the world, or this is my favorite Beatles album because, and they would have to do group projects and everything, and some of the kids really got into it. I get emails every now and then. I just got an email about a year ago from a girl. She's like, Paul McCartney's coming back for a concert. I want to go see him. I love your class, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I heard about that.
It's fun. You can take sometimes your interests and dovetail them in with your teaching. I mean, I don't know. Some of the kids are probably bored out of their minds, but none of them really express that to me. So who knows?
Yeah, well, that's nice that you have that freedom.
Yeah.
Okay, so just so I can have in my mind, just to pinpoint the timeline here. So the first, you can only really stay in JET for 5 years. JET, for people who don't know, is the Japan Exchange, and what's the acronym?
Teaching program.
Wait, say that again. Japan what?
Exchange.
Japan Exchange Teaching Program. That's right. Okay, so you were there for quite a long time, right?
Yeah, the maximum you can do it is you recontract every year, and the maximum you can do it is 5 times or 4 times after your initial year, so 5 years.
Okay, it's like an ALT job where you have to show up.
ALT job, yeah,
and where you stay in the homeroom. Where you get what's really weird, I've always found interesting because I was an ALT 1 year.
Yeah.
And that's where you have the teacher's room, and the teachers all gather in that one room.
Staff
Is that
room,
right?
Yeah.
You
have a desk in the staff room, and
you have a desk in the staff room,
and junior high had about 400 kids, so there was 4 homerooms per grade level: 4 7th grade, 4 8th grade, 4 9th grade. So that's 12 English classes potentially you could go to a day. but obviously there's only 6 periods or whatever in the day. So you'd probably get asked to 3 or 4 a day, have a couple off periods where you can rest or prep or whatever. And then I also had to leave my junior high once or twice a week and go to an elementary school where I would do, at first, I would do anywhere from first grade all the way up to 6th grade. And there's however many of those there are. And then Japan kind of changed its focus, and they were like, we really just want to focus on 5th and 6th graders learning English. We're going to give them a book, and we want them to be prepared for junior high, and blah, blah, blah. So they really said no more 1 through 4 my last couple years, just do 5th and 6th graders. And so I had 5 elementary schools, ranging in size from one school that had 11 children in it, the whole school, all the way up to schools with 200 or 300 kids. Because this is rural Shimane, so I mean the birth rate is really probably way lower than some other, because everybody in Shimane is really old.
Okay, so for our listeners / watchers out there, where is Shimane again? Shimane's
Shimane is on the main island of Honshu. Mm-hmm. And you kind of got Tokyo, and then you get to Nagoya, Osaka, and Kobe, and then you're coming down. And Hiroshima-ken's on the inside. On the outside of the island, on the Sea of Japan side, near Korea, is Shimane-ken.
Oh, okay, all right, just I knew it was near somewhere near Hiroshima, so just reconfirm that. Okay, so you went to several schools. You weren't just at one.
Right. Then after 3 years, they used to have an old system where you had to become an ALT in only elementary schools. You had to take a test. You had to be able to speak Japanese. And they would just use you. I mean, just really use you. You'd run around and do like 20 elementary schools in the whole place you were living in or whatever. But they changed that system in the October of my 3rd year. And so when I recontracted, I was able just to stay at my junior high. So I was one of the very first ALTs to ever do 5 years in a row at the same school. And then they added a school. And so at the end, I had 2 junior highs and 7 elementaries.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I loved it. The kids were awesome. They're in that great age where they haven't been beaten down by the system as much. They're still Genki, and yet they're starting to be a little bit more mature. And by the time they get to 9th grade, you kind of have a conversation without, it involving a concho or something like that. And but they were just so much fun. And I loved sports day, and I loved the school spirit and Bukasai and culture festival and really being part of the school.
You did elementary or middle school?
I did middle school was my main area, and then they would ship me off to elementary on a day-by-day basis as needed.
Okay, so you're saying that middle school kids were the ones that
middle school kids were really cool.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
Yeah.
When I was working for a company named Max Seed at the time, partnered with, you probably know of them, Interact.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you stayed at Jet doing that for about 5 years, and then your stint for that was over, and then you went back over to California,
right,
to San Diego, and then you had a chance to get a university job. Is that correct?
Right. So a girl I knew in Jet, the previous year, she had left Jet and gotten a job at this university in a city called Hamada in Shimane, which is even more rural than the city I was in before. And she was going back to Canada, and she's like, hey, I'm leaving at the end of summer in like September. Were you interested in taking over the job? It involves working in this sort of language lab center, and then you would also be teaching some English classes because you don't have a master's degree. And then combined, you get your benefits, you get your health care and everything, and then you get a salary for this and salary for teaching. And I'm like, sure. So I had gone back in March after I'd left Jet the following March to go to graduation and say goodbye to some of my kids. They really wanted me to come back and see them. So I did, and I went to Sumo in Osaka. And then I went for an interview, and I really liked the campus and the lady that ran it, and they hired me.
Oh, so wait a minute. You got this job while in Japan?
No, I moved back to America. I moved back to America in the summer of 2009.
Okay.
And then I went back in March of 2010 to go to graduation because kids in Japan schools graduate in March.
Right, right.
And at that time, Leah, the girl who who hooked me up, knew. And so she said, well, while you're here in March, come to my school and meet my boss. And then when I leave in September, you would have already met them and everything. And so, it'll be easy for you to get the job. And I think, for them, it's just, they didn't have to advertise and do a lot of interviews and, go through all that.
Right, right.
They hired me very easily. But Shimane was just such a pit. It was just, there's no movie theater. I had to drive 2 hours to get to a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did it a lot. You'd be surprised, Radrey, how often I did that.
Well, I mean, if I were you, I'd do the same thing. But
yeah, there was no Starbucks, we had a McDonald's. That was it. There was no delivery, anything. There was just no people. All the college
There's no people. There's no Starbucks.
Well, I mean, I was 30. What was I by then? I was 40. Yeah, I just turned 40. So I mean, sure, there's Jets, but they're all 25, and I tried to sort of be friends with them, but it's just so different. 15 years is a lot.
Yeah, a bit of a generation gap, I guess.
And then Japanese people my age, they're either married or they're not for good reason, or you know what I mean. So it was hard, and my apartment was really old and drafty, and I don't know why I stayed there as long as I did. I'm really glad I got out. But you settle into things. You get under that kotatsu in the winter, and you just go, okay. And
so wait, who is Leah? Was that a friend of yours?
She was the girl that had worked at the university that went back to Canada.
Oh, okay. And how did you know her?
Her job when she left.
Oh, okay. And you weren't friends with her, were you?
I knew her from Jet, so that's why when I just posted on Facebook, oh, I really want to go back to Japan. I'm going to look for a job in Japan when I came home. And she's like, oh, I heard through Facebook that you're looking to come back to Japan. Would you like to go back?
So if you did not make that one Facebook post, maybe you wouldn't have gotten that job even now.
Yeah.
Crazy how these things happen.
Yeah.
Butterfly effect, quote unquote.
Because you left Japan for a while too, right?
No, not really.
I went to Indonesia or Singapore or something, but maybe I'm wrong.
For a vacation.
Oh, okay.
Not like a long duration or anything.
Okay.
No, I mean, I've had plenty of chances to go back to the States, but I don't know. There's just nothing there for me. Every time I go back and I'm like, I love my hometown. I love seeing my parents. I love seeing my old friends. But I'm like, I'm so done with this place. Every time I walk around, I'm like, ugh, this old thing. Like, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess I know so many people here in Japan, and I have connections, and I've made friends, and it's like I don't want to start that all over again. Having to make new friends, having to. I mean, I don't know. I technically don't. This is like this right now. This podcast. This is my social life. I mean, I don't think I'd really have much of a social life if I moved back to Colorado, because a lot of it was when I was in college. I didn't really talk to anyone. It was pretty much the same thing I do here. I mean, now what is it? They used to have this Denny's right next to the college campus. I used to go there all the time, just like do homework and stuff, right, by myself all the time. And all my friends were like who were in high school. They went to different colleges, so I never saw them. Right. So being accustomed to being alone and doing stuff on your own all the time just became commonplace for me. So the idea of what loneliness was something that it didn't really bother me when I came here.
That's the same. I think that's the same for me. Like I don't have a friend group here where I live that I go out with a lot or do stuff with. I have a few friends from work. I have a guy who likes the Marvel movies. So, hey, there's a new Marvel movie showing. Oh, okay, I'll go with you. But other than that, I pretty much go to the movies by myself. But online, I found the Sumo community that I have on my videos. I've now met people, like when I went to the bus show recently, I went to Fukuoka to watch it live last weekend. and I met up with a fan just from Mexico, just wanted to have dinner with me. And then another guy that writes for a blog, we met up, and fans came up to me at the arena and were saying hello to me and stuff. So, you know, it's really just that's been a very satisfying part of it, because it is an outlet for speaking English and communicating about something you love, whether it be movies or sumo or whatever it is. So yeah, so I'm very thankful for YouTube. It certainly does belay some of the loneliness you might have otherwise.
I mean, I guess in general too, it's easy to. I guess the way to defeat loneliness in a way is just to find people who enjoy the things that you like. Right. You know, you only really feel lonely when you realize you're the only one who likes something.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Like when you like one thing, but one of your friends doesn't like something, you're like, oh, I guess I'll watch it by myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so, yeah, getting back on the topic of your basically your life working in university. Now, you felt like working in university was probably a much different beast than like working in middle school or elementary school.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, the kids obviously are adults. I mean, I don't know if you've talked to other people on this show who teach at university.
Eric served 6.
Okay. So I don't know if Eric mentioned it, but
yeah,
college in Japan is fun time. So
right.
I actually had a student.
Yeah.
I actually had a student of mine now, and I'm like, where do you want to go to college? You know, your English is so good. You're a good student. You could easily get into one of the good American colleges or go to Cambridge or Oxford or in England. And she's like, I don't want to go to an American school because then I'd actually have to study and work. I'm going to stay here in Japan, maybe do a year abroad. But she knows. I mean, the kids know that when they get to college, it's like they're 4 years where they don't have to really do much. They get to play. They get to live alone for a time, which is a huge thing in Japan. Most of them get single occupancy apartments. They don't live in the dorms, maybe a little bit. And it's just, hey, let's go skiing. Let's go to Europe. Let's go to Korea, you know, and they travel a lot. And I think school and academics and all that, you know, like we had to like really sweat our tests and turn in research papers and stuff. Not in Japan. So it was tough. And my English department, it was a very rural school with only about 1,000 kids. It's a really small school, but they had to take English for 2 years. So you had the kids who enjoyed it, and maybe were good at it. We had 5 levels. You know, we took a class of, say, 200 kids, and it's like 40, 40, 40, 40, 40. And I usually got the 40 at the bottom.
Oh, really?
So I would have to teach the kids who had no interest in English, could barely speak above.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And we had fun, and I mean, they liked me, and
well, if they like you, then that's a good start. That's a good start.
You know. But at the same time, just getting them to do anything and stuff, it was a tough road. But I had electives sometimes where the kids were more skilled or more Genki or whatever, and so that helped. And you know, I mean, I toughed it out, but I probably gotten out of there sooner.
Do you ever have any students that like just won't say anything? They just stand there, or they just sit there and look at you?
Not so much. I would sometimes.
Okay, well that's good. Then that's a step above.
Yeah, if the class was small enough, I would go around and I would kind of call on each one. And sometimes they would just look at me, and you could tell like they'd been out the night before, or they were still a little hungover or whatever. And they would just give me that look, and I'm just like, okay, we'll pass. We'll come back to you. And so and then you go to the next person, and so fine. You know, the huge cosmic importance of them answering that one question at that one moment is so infinitesimally small that, you know, it didn't bother me that they couldn't answer that one time.
Right. Well, I mean, with some of these kids, I mean, well, you get to know more about their lives and who they are as people by asking them questions, right?
Sure.
So would you say most college students, I remember watching one of your videos where you said college students in Japan, a lot of them just end up going back to living with their mom or dad. Is that right?
A lot of them, well, sure, especially right after college, because, you know, they haven't gotten a job yet necessarily. Um, but most of them, especially in Shimane, had ambitions to go live in Tokyo or Osaka or one of the big cities.
Oh, okay.
So they definitely did want to get out. Unfortunately, that's a problem like a place like Shimane is facing, is that all the young people leave and some of them come back and some of them maybe want to get married and stay there and stuff, but not a lot. And so you have a really aged population and everything, and then you have like a whole lot of nothing in the 20s and 30s, unless they're working as the local post office clerk or kindergarten teacher or something, and they've decided to stay in Shimane. So, I don't know.
Probably the appeal of being in the countryside is not all that cool. It's not as exciting, I guess.
That are good about it, the small community, the safety, the looking after each other, etc. That doesn't necessarily appeal to 20-year-olds, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want excitement, nightlife, things to do, blah blah blah. And who can blame them? So they go off to where you live, and want to make it in Tokyo.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me ask you this. So usually a lot of foreigners, people like us, a lot of us end up leaving Japan.
Right.
But there's some of us who decide to stay here for reasons. I mean, I've discussed mine and you've pretty much said yours as well. Yeah. But I remember I've been listening to a bunch of podcasts, and it seems like a lot of people who do end up leaving Japan, a lot of them leave because of this kind of cognitive dissonance they have with people here in Japan, and kind of like they kind of feel like what they're doing here isn't as rewarding anymore. Like where they feel like, I mean, call this a conspiracy theory, but it's like, it sort of feels like sometimes when you're teaching kids English, it's just like the system is made so they never get better. Do you agree with that? Or am I making up like string plots and everything and tying everything together? Like
the X-Files music.
Yeah, play the X-Files music with what's that meme of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with Charlie Day and the line graphs and everything.
Yeah, I mean, teaching English, which, like I said, I got out of, thankfully. I mean, I did it for a while, and I really enjoyed doing it at the beginning, especially.
Okay, so you mostly just teach history now. It's like no English.
Teach history. I have 1 English class and 5 history classes. So, and there is. You do feel it's a little futile at times because a lot of these kids are never going to leave Japan. They're never going to use the English that they've learned, and a lot of them really could care less. So forcing them to learn it is almost, I don't know. It's like when you and I you're a lot younger than me, but when we went to high school, rather in America, a foreign language was an elective generally, right?
Yeah.
Like either took Spanish or French, I'm sure, for 2 years to get into college, like most of us do. I took French for 2 years. God knows, I speak no French.
Right.
But anyway, but I mean, at least you're motivated in that sense. Like, I've got to get a good grade, and I need to get this to get into college and whatever. The kids here, it's just it's just wallpaper to them, And sure, if you have a fun foreign teacher come into your classroom every now and then, that's cool. But my classes now, I teach without a Japanese person, and I teach like 4 times a week. So it's just all me all the time. And that's a lot different for them. But still, a lot of them, the outside world for a lot of Japanese kids, I think, especially, is pretty scary because Japanese as a language is really only spoken in one place, Japan. There's not, I mean, there's a tiny Japan town in LA. There's little pockets here and there. But it's not like Chinese, and which still is mostly spoken just in one place. But it's certainly not like some other languages, French maybe, where you can find it in other places. Japan, really, you can't. And so they need English if they ever want to leave, but a lot of them just don't ever see themselves leaving. So I don't know, it is tough. If I can go on a rant here for a second, the thing is harder as a teacher in Japan is the fact that you can't fail anybody. The kids never fail.
Oh, really? This I didn't know.
Yeah, so they never get held
maybe
back.
I did know this.
They never, if they score below 20% on any exam, they're allowed to retake and do makeup work, etc., to get themselves back up above that. Which, of course, 20% is horrendously low, but that's like the minimum you have to get to like keep going. And there's all these prop-up maneuvers in place. Every kid in Japan that goes through the school system graduates. Nobody ever, unless they remove themselves. So it's hard for me as a teacher sometimes. I can give a bad grade to a student, but ultimately they're going to pass my class. You know what I mean?
Whereas, so it kind of feels like you're not contributing anything.
Right. At university, I could actually fail a student.
Right.
But even that required paperwork and interviews, and I really had to be like, they just never showed up and they never did any work, and so they're getting an F. And
it feels like nothing amounts to anything, right?
But in regular school, in high school and junior high, that doesn't happen. The kids are so looked after and coddled, and they know, that there's no consequence, and there's no detention and after school this or whatever. And that's hard. It's hard from a disciplinary aspect, and it's hard from a, hey, if you don't do this, this is going to happen to you aspect.
Consequences.
That's worse,
So what do you do when you have a student that's just like the worst student ever? You just kind of just have to deal with it?
Yeah, you kind of have to work around it. I have a student now who, he just doesn't do homework and he just doesn't participate in class very much. And, we keep him after school sometimes and say, okay, now you've got to do your homework now from 5 to 5:30 and you don't get to go home yet. And he'll do that. But it's like he gets like between 30 and 50% on most of his tests, type of thing. And it's just like, well, okay, but it's a private school and they want his money. So, they wanted to keep going to our school. And so he's going to pass. He's going to get to go, to the next grade. And then, it's like passing the buck. Well, okay, well, this new homeroom teacher and these new teachers will have to deal with him. What can I say? I don't. Well, it's not my decision. It's not my preference. But yeah.
Let me ask you this. I mean, being here in Tokyo, since like 2009, it's now 2018. I've seen way more foreigners, like just as tourists, coming here.
Sure.
Excuse me. I've been seeing a lot more foreigners, coming in and, a lot of them like going to Shibuya and asking everything like in English. It's like, if you work in Shibuya, you're probably going to need to know something in English. Otherwise, they're going to just, or like the way they do it in America, it's like, if you don't understand them, just speak louder, and they'll
slow down.
Somehow, yeah, and somehow they'll understand you if you speak louder, right? Slow down and speak really loud.
In dollars.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: have you since the time you've been in Hiroshima, have you seen any foreigners?
In my place where I live now, I don't see that many. There's the local Jets. There's a couple Kiowa people. There's teachers like me who work at private schools or whatever. But there's still probably less than 100 of us. And now when I say foreigners, I'm not including, Chinese or Korean or other foreigners who aren't Japanese that live in the city.
Well, I guess I'm including those too. So, do you ever see any of those? Do you see any tourists at all in that area?
Oh, in my town? No. If I go into Hiroshima City, which is obviously a huge tourist town, then I see all kinds.
Okay.
I saw a lot at the Sumo when I went down to Fukuoka.
More so than previously?
Yeah, yeah. I was really surprised. I'd say there was at least 200 that I spotted in the arena that day out of 6,000.
Yeah, so like I'm thinking here, it's
Yeah.
just like Japan can only. I mean, I feel so ethnocentric saying this, but
Yeah.
bear with me. I can't imagine this country can put up with it much longer. You know, like of not being able to like speak English. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
sort of like if you're.
go ahead.
I mean, if you're a doctor, you know, and you don't speak English, or if you don't have a high enough TOEIC score, you know,
Yeah.
you're not going to get the job, you
No.
know, or if you're not, it makes you more qualified.
Sure.
I mean, I imagine that like because Japan's kind of going through this problem with this labor shortage right now,
Right.
and they're hiring all these foreigners, and I imagine they it can't always be like this forever, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're going to see it more so in the next 2 years. Next year in 2019, we get the Rugby World Cup, which is
We
kind of
do?
like, yeah, we're
Oh,
hosting
okay.
the Rugby World Cup, and it's going to be at 8 cities around Japan. Obviously, the big final and everything will be in Tokyo or Yokohama or somewhere nearby. Um, Unfortunately, nowhere close to where I live. The closest place to where I live where they're having matches is Fukuoka. Um, but that'll be a test. That's baby steps, of course, to the Olympics, which is the big one in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I think they've got to make. I was talking to my kids the other day because we're studying World War II, and I said, okay, can anyone draw a swastika on the board? And none of them could. And I said, okay, well, it looks kind of like this. And I drew one, and they said, wait, that's the symbol for a temple. And I said, yeah. I said, that isn't that weird? You know, Hitler stole this from Buddhism, and it's now used on a lot of Japanese maps as oh, there's a shrine here or a temple actually, because shrine is Shinto and temple is Buddhism. But and so they're like, oh, that's weird. It's not quite the same. I said, yeah, he changed the lines a little bit. And I said, it's funny because I just saw a thing that they're changing that on maps, especially like Google, because they don't want people Googling and seeing a swastika come up, you know, for foreigners because they won't understand what it is. It's called a manju here.
Right.
And so they're having to come up with all these new like emoticons and little symbols and things for different things. So they're more friendly, foreigner friendly.
Yeah.
And I think they've done a good job of putting bilingual knowledge on signs and train stations. And I think if you're a foreigner, you come here, you only speak English, you get around pretty well. But of course, you're going to get into that cab where the cab driver's 67 and looks at you like you're from, you know, Africa because he's not understanding a single word you say.
Yeah.
But nowadays, you can hand him your phone and say, "Oh, here is where I need to go." And you know, I mean, it's so different than it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So, you know, I hope.
It feels like the walls are closing in, you know?
I think one of the things that's interesting is somebody like Naomi Osaka. Do you know who she is?
Yeah, the tennis player, right?
Right.
She doesn't speak any Japanese.
Right. She claims, you know, she fights. No, she plays for Japan. She's not in Game of Thrones, Jason. Come on. So she
hey, she can fight for Japan.
Fight for Japan if she wants. Yeah, so she just has the, you know, the connection of the one parent's from there, but she's never really lived here. She doesn't speak the language. She doesn't look very Japanese, let's be honest. And so whether, you know, the Japanese people will embrace her, there was a recent Miss Universe who was half Japanese, and there was a big kerfuffle, you know, oh, does she look Japanese enough to represent Japan?
Right. I saw that.
And other things like that. And there's a Olympic runner who's really good, who if you just looked at him, oh, he's a black guy. But he's not. He's half black, half Japanese, and he's on the relay team that won the first medal for Japan, and so on and so forth. So as that starts to happen and the Japanese start to be a little less strict, I guess I want to say, about who is and who isn't Japanese, I think you'll start to see a relaxation in the culture in general. But you know, you must have said this to your friends before, especially when you've gone back to America, and they'll be like, "Oh, how's life in Japan?" or whatever. I know for me, like, I go about my day here, and I almost never see a foreigner other than at work. The other foreign teachers.
Right.
So when I look out of my eyeballs at everybody around me, and they're all the same, they're all Japanese, right? 98.9% of them. You just forget sometimes that you are not.
Right.
That you don't feel your otherness because you're just walking around, getting your groceries, going to the movies, going to McDonald's, whatever you're doing. And then somebody will stare at you, or somebody will, say, "Oh, where are you from?" Or somebody would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm from. Okay, yeah, I'm white. Okay, I get it." And so I'm kind of gotten to that point where I'm just sort of like, I don't think about it until it's put upon me. But
right, I think that goes for a lot of us, though.
But I think that's one of the amazing things the JET program did, is that it sent all these teachers out to all these rural places so that the kids could see a foreigner in the grocery store or at the mall. And you might be the only one in your town like I was, but it makes it a little, it's not just, oh, there's that person on TV that's from a foreign place speaking in a language I don't understand. There's people in your town, in your community. And kids that grow up where you are in Tokyo, I mean, they must be so blasé about foreigners, they don't care anymore. They see them every day, all day. But still, out where I am, it's still kind of rare. And I'll go to the mall, and I think part of it's just because I'm huge. But I mean, kids will be like, they'll tug at their mom and go, "Gaijin da," and stuff. You still get that a little bit, and it doesn't bother me at all. But I think less and less, and I hope less and less.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know.
So
here to go.
Let's talk about movies.
Actually, I have a movie question for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
We're big movie people. We like movies. Obviously, you can see in Jason's background, he's got all this
my man
stuff. Yeah. You know, one LDK? I mean, I guess if you don't want to tell me, you don't have to.
No, I'm in my kind of spare room now, which I've turned into my fun room. Then over there is my living room with my television, my couch, and my aircon.
I need a fun room.
My kitchen, bathroom, and then I have a bedroom that's like on the other side of this wall, the other part of the place. So what is that? Maybe 2 LDK?
Okay, that's pretty good. I mean, I wish I could get that.
Not a bad size.
Yeah.
So
I'm in a 1 LDK here. Anyway, yeah, movies. All right, so one thing I wanted to talk about, since it still kind of follows the integrity of the show.
Okay.
Is you made a YouTube video like about Terrace House, right?
Oh yeah,
the Japanese show.
I tried to.
You tried to? What are you talking about? It's still on YouTube.
No, I made it, but I mean, I wanted it to be the start of something, and of course,
oh, I see.
I never made like a second one. But anyway, go
on. And what is it? Where was I going? Oh, now I remember. So it was this show. It's the show where it's kind of like it's a Japanese version of Real World. Real World. Thank you.
Yep.
The Real World. But what everybody seemed to like about it was that dating in Japan was very, very different.
Yes.
Right. Like where I haven't really watched an episode because I don't have the patience for it. Really,
it's the best.
I know. I've heard it's good, but I don't know. I'm not sure if I want to watch a dating show. But anyway, like some reality shows I really love, some I hate. But what I remember seeing one episode. What was really interesting about it was this one girl. She spent this entire day with this guy.
Yeah.
But she was entirely just spending the entire day with him just to be polite.
Right.
And it seems so weird because I mean, like opposed to like American culture where, you're just kind of everything's kind of vague and ambiguous, at first because you're friends and you have this kind of tension between the two of you, and then one thing goes to another, and and then you hook up. But there, it was more sort of about, I don't know. Help me fill in the blank here, Jason. How would you compare the two?
Well, yeah. First of all, it's that level that you see as a foreigner between when you meet somebody and there's the yoroshikus and the hajimemashite's and all the bowing and everything. Kids, and I mean I call them kids, but they're early 20s, young adults. really are like that in Japan. When they meet each other, they're still very sort of tenuous with each other and polite, and they will call each other by maybe their first name or something. But there's not a lot of shared housing in Japan. There's not a lot of, we all grew up with having a roommate at some point in our lives if you live in America. But here in Japan, that's not so common. So putting 6 people together in a house to live together, especially when they didn't choose to do that, like as friends and then go rent somewhere together, they're meeting each other. It's really weird. They're very formal. And then that starts to break down a little bit. Then maybe somebody's attracted to somebody else. But it takes forever for them to like make any move or do anything. I mean, just even to like kiss or hold hands. I mean, hold hands. You might as well be fucking. I mean, it's just like it's so crazy to me. But I am so obsessed with it. I love that show. It's on Netflix. If you're watching, watch it on Netflix. You can turn on the subtitles. And I think it's on every Monday or Tuesday. Now, here in Japan, I think we're ahead of where they are in the rest of the world, but still, I've watched 3 seasons now, and I just love it.
Because I mean, this is like the only show I can think of where it kind of caught the attention of like international viewers.
Yeah,
and I think mostly the only reason I think why it kind of caught on was because people were unaware about how different dating was here in Japan.
Yeah. The dating ritual is definitely, and I mean, it's weird because some of them go to the house looking for love, and it's like, really? I mean, there's 3 boys and 3 girls at all times. That's never, the balance is always kept. If a boy leaves, another boy replaces him, a girl leaves, girl. So it's like, you've got 3 people to choose from, and you're random, and you're hoping you find love. I just don't even get that. But okay, I mean, is it that hard to meet people in Tokyo or whatever? But yeah, it's interesting when they talk about how many boyfriends they've had or if they've never had the experience, and yada yada, and it's just, it must be really tough. I mean, like at my school, the kids still separate along gender lines a huge amount. There's no school dances or anything like that where they can socialize with each other. It's really, you're not supposed to like have a boyfriend or girlfriend at Japanese school. The girls are not allowed to wear makeup or jewelry. The boys are not allowed to put mousse in their hair. There's all these silly rules. And of course they're wearing school uniform. So there's no kind of, individuality that way in the way they dress or whatever. So I think it's college, it's college really when they break out and they start to have boyfriends and girlfriends and more interesting relationships with each other. But it's really pushed off until they're 18. And even then, I think some of them just don't, they couldn't be bothered,
Yeah.
Oh, then dokusai, having a girlfriend or boyfriend, oh, it costs me money, or, this or that, or, oh, I'd rather be playing PlayStation or building my Gundam model or whatever. So, it's just fascinating when they are in this situation and you see the steps they go through, and yeah, I am totally absorbed in it. Plus, for me, I just like it because it's like young people speaking. It's great practice for me listening to Japanese, and but the thing that makes it, and the thing that I think would appeal to you, because you're snarky, is the screen lords. Some website calls them screen lords. So there's these 5 kind of tarentos, and they interrupt the show twice every show. And
right.
They're watching the show, and then they make comments for 2 or 3 minutes. And 2 of them are comedians, 2 of them are like ladies who have, and then there's like an actor who's a cute boy or whatever for the young people. But they're really funny, and they have really interesting observations about the show. And they, make fun of the characters on the show and whatever. And then they say, well, what they think is going to happen next. That to me makes the show. I mean, it's just so funny and interesting. Their reaction to what's going on, that, yeah, it's just so unlike any kind of American reality show. You should give it a shot, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, I will at some point in time.
Yeah.
When I realize I want something competing for my eyeballs, or when something's not competing for my eyeballs.
Yeah, I think more Netflix. I would watch more Japanese shows if they were subtitled. But I have Netflix Japan, whatever that is, and almost every Japanese show I click on, they don't bother to subtitle it, but this show did.
I don't know. It's like I watched one foreign show. It was from Germany called Dark. Have you heard of it?
No.
I recommend that one. That one's pretty good.
Is it like a mini series?
Yeah, it's a mini. It's not a mini series. It's like an ongoing show.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like Breaking Bad or Mad Men or one of those, where it's about time travel. And it's a very serious story about time travel, but it's really well put together. It's really well made.
German, so you watched it with English subtitles.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
I can't stand that like dubbing stuff. I'm like, unless I want to laugh at the movie, then I'll turn that on. But yeah, I can't do the dubbing.
Yeah, I can't either.
It's just annoying. Yeah, but I'd like to see. I mean, I've said this like hundreds of times. I'd like to see, or maybe I should just do something. But then again, I don't really have any Netflix connections. But I'd like to see like a Japanese show that's accepted internationally. That's really big internationally. You know, to be able to say like, man, I can't wait to like, you know, be excited about it, you know, watching it or have the experience of watching it. Like the only other show I can really think of that where I had this kind of golden age of television kind of feel for was the Densha Otoko series. Did you watch that?
I remember that. Yeah.
That was great. Like, why can't we have another one like that?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I was at the university, we used to do these Skype sessions where my 20, 21-year-old-ish students would talk to college students in America. And so, you know, they'd be around the same age and the culture thing. And the first thing they always used to ask was, you know, anime and manga, because they know that, right? The kids in America grew up on anime and manga, so they know some of that. And then the baby metal. That's like one of the things they're like, oh, I know baby metal. Is baby metal popular? And all my kids would be like, I've never even heard of baby metal. What are you talking about? And then, and so almost like, you know, every now and then you get a horror fan like, oh, I used to love The Ring or, you know, The Grudge or whatever they were called in Japanese. And
Sadako.
You know, do you like Japanese horror? And maybe one of my kids would be like, yeah, I kind of do. And, you know, but of course,
there's such a disconnect, right?
Disconnect. It's so huge, and that's a hard thing for me too as a teacher, because every now and then I'll be like, oh, you remember that Simpsons where? Oh no, you guys don't. Okay, and you know, part of that's my age, and then part of that's the fact that you know they didn't grow up in America. But
I guess Pokemon would work.
Pokemon, yeah. Have you seen the trailer for the new Pokemon thing?
With Ryan Reynolds do the voice?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it. I saw like a picture of it. I'm not sure if I want to watch it.
Watch the trailer.
Should I see it? All right.
No, you shouldn't see the movie. I mean, well, that's up to you, but just watch the trailer.
Okay. Well, I mean, that only came out. That's like a U.S. made only Pokemon.
Yeah. I mean,
isn't that odd? I mean, like you have stuff like Pokemon. You have Pokemon Go, which was not made by Japan, and it became like this huge international success.
Yeah.
You know, where you'd think it would be somewhere, it would be famous, popular here and other countries. You know, because like it's weird here in Japan. Like I've made enough friends here in Japan where I realized, or they've told me how the movie system works here, right? And why movies always take forever to get here, right?
Yeah.
And he was telling me that it's basically they look how it does in other countries, and they're usually very careful about what they bring in to Japan, because one is they don't want to they want their domestic market to be big, right?
Sure.
And so they also and they also want to make sure that it makes the money that it's going to make. They don't like this, you know, unpredictability of it, which is frustrating for us, you know, because like when something comes out, you want it now, you know, you don't want to wait 3 months or 5 months, you know.
No, I mean, I think an interesting thing, you know, is every now and then there'll be a movie. Like my absolute favorite movie from about 2 years ago now, I think, was called Kubo and the Two Strings. Did you?
Right. Yeah,
I love that movie. Couldn't wait to talk to Japanese friends about like, oh, it's about Japanese culture. Look at all these cool things. It's animation, but it's not. It's stop motion, blah blah. And it never like came out here. it like took forever, and finally I was at the video store because we still have those in Japan, and I saw
You do.
I saw the cover, you know, in Japanese. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, obviously, it just never came to my local theater at all, and it's now on DVD, you know, here to rent. So I'm going to show it to some of my kids for Christmas, you know, in Japanese with subtitles, or no, in English with Japanese subtitles. Sorry, because the original movie is in English.
Right.
But yeah, so every now and then it's weird when a product like Pikachu or Kubo is made by Americans, but obviously there was that recent Wes Anderson film about Islands of Dogs or whatever, that it reflects back upon their culture and what they think of it. But yeah, I mean, the biggest movie in the box office last weekend in Japan was the Freddie Mercury movie. I mean,
oh, was it?
Yeah, I mean they'll bring movies in. I'm sure the biggest movie this weekend, opening here a week later than most of the rest of the world, is the new Harry Potter movie. So that'll probably be huge. Every now and then things do come out.
Oh yeah, that new Harry Potter movie's coming out.
Yeah, the Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah.
So Venom, you know, did okay here. But yeah, like Aquaman, which comes out at Christmas, isn't going to come out here until February, and so on and so forth. And I think, you know, but I mean, you know, you ask a kid who's Aquaman, no kid here knows who Aquaman is. You know?
Remember when you wore an Aquaman t-shirt and be like, what a nerd.
Yeah,
and now you wear an Aquaman shirt and like, oh man, that's so vintage. Where'd you get that?
I try to talk to my kids about, like, Stan Lee just passed away.
Right. Did you know William Goldman just passed away too?
Who?
You know William Goldman?
Oh, the screenwriter behind Butch Cassidy?
Yeah, he just passed away too.
Yeah, I heard about that. That was sad.
Yeah, I heard about that today. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know. I guess Stan Lee passing away took the cake, but yeah. I don't know. He was older and need more.
And so I put the word Marvel up on the board in one of my classrooms, my 10th grade classroom. I'm like, okay, you guys all know this. You know, Uniqlo sold shirts with this on for like $5 a summer ago. You know, I've seen a bunch of you with pen cases with it on. Name me a Marvel character. And a few of them were like, oh, Spider-Man, X-Men, you know, Batman. I'm like, well, no, Batman's somebody else. Superman, no, Superman's somewhere else, you know. So finally we got a list of about, you know, 10 characters. And I'm like, yeah, all these were created by this one dude. His name's Stan Lee, you know. And I was trying to just give him a little bit of history right there on the moment. But the kids here know a little bit. But, you know, they've got so much homegrown entertainment that's amazing that, you know, they don't really need our Justice League crappy movie and, you know, this other, you know, if it's good, sure. You know, yeah. Avengers, hey, go see that. But most of it, I'm like, I probably wouldn't recommend that.
Let's see. Japanese entertainment for kids. Crayon Shin-chan's pretty good, but I can understand why that never really came to America and why they only aired it on like an Adult Swim late at night.
Did you see what Conan was doing with Detective Conan?
Yeah, I saw that. Conan O'Brien came here and he and he also worked with Hideo Kojima on some secret project. Wonder what that's all about. But anyway, yeah, there's Crayon Shin-chan, there's Shin Maruko-chan, and there's like Doraemon. Doraemon's the one that really bothers me. I don't know why, but there's something about the philosophy of Doraemon that just irks me. Like, it really bothers me. Like, this kind of like this idea that a kid, in order to like have a better life, is like essentially the philosophy is you should be a futurist. You know, you should expect that the future will have something that'll take care of you. You're like, yeah, that is true, but it's like supposedly we've cured baldness, right? But do you know how much that costs?
Yeah.
To cure baldness, you know, it's like I'm having a little bit of a receding hairline, but I'm not going to the doctors to like, you know, take care of any of that.
Well, it's true. It's like, to me, the creepy one is Ampanman.
Oh yeah, Ampanman doesn't bother me. That one's okay.
Like taking chunks of his thing. Here, eat me. I don't quite get that one. But yeah, One Piece and Naruto and all these things that were huge for a while, they come and go. And
well, I mean, there's a lot of them that have had like a long mainstays. I mean, like One Piece is like from the 90s, and Mario's been since like 80s, and Well, I guess Mario is more of a video game, but I'm just surprised by how like such a long shelf life a lot of these cartoons have had. I mean, like in the States right now, you're having a bunch of different kind of cartoons like Gumball and Steven Universe, and which they are really great shows. Like I watched a few of them. But it feels like there's something fresh. Whereas here, it's just I don't know. I hate to put it down. It's like because sometimes being in Japan. Don't get me wrong. I love living here and I love doing everything. But sometimes it's like I agree with what Hiko Simon said about it once. You know, sometimes you feel like you're rooting for a baseball team that you really like, but they really suck. You know, you want them to do well, but they're not doing well. They haven't been doing well. You're like, no.
It'll be interesting to see how much they try to, you know, up their game for the Olympics in a few years. I think that's going to really be a big test. And, you know, but I was really disappointed right out of the gate. As many amazing manga and anime and video game characters we have, did you see the 2 mascots?
Oh, yeah, they're okay.
They're terrible designs, I thought.
Okay.
The logo was terrible.
Yeah, you didn't like them?
No.
What don't you like about them?
They're generic. There's nothing. I don't know. I don't know.
You know, I have a friend who has the Twitter account Mondo Mascots, and he takes pictures of mascots all the time.
Yeah,
I should ask what he thinks about them.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain local mascots that I think are way more interesting than the ones that came out.
I always like the ones that are creepy, that are like unnecessarily creepy. Like they went overboard on it. Like what's that one? They have one in Hokkaido with like the bear lemon, and it's like this ferocious bear. like Jesus, why did you go so over the top with it? And then like they have one where there's like a kappa, and like it looks really creepy.
Yeah,
like it looked like have you ever seen like a cockroach before that was really 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 red? That's what it looked like.
I don't know. So,
but wait, so the Olympic designs, I guess they're okay. I don't really have any.
Let me bring them up here. Let me just.
Oh, by the way, going back to what you were talking about, the swastika thing about being them wanting to remove it. I googled that, and it said, and then I found one BBC article that says Japan's plan to drop swastikas as temple symbol sparks backlash.
Oh.
You know, it's also interesting though too is I've been seeing a lot of my students draw swastikas on like their homework and stuff, and I'm like, I looked it up, and supposedly it's this thing called manji.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Have you seen your students draw any of these swastikas before? You're like, what?
Not every now and then randomly, but not a lot. Like,
because I had one where like they'd start drawing it all over the board. I'm like, I know they don't know what that means because they don't really learn World War II like Americans learn what World War II is. But
right.
Anyway.
No, I don't think we have neo-Nazis in our midst. I think we're safe.
For now. Yeah. We're not America, so
I don't know. The Tokyo designs, they look like they could be from any country. Why couldn't I don't know.
I guess they're kind of cute. I don't know. I don't hate them. I'll tell you what I do hate.
Yeah.
I do hate I hate the logo for the Olympics. It looks like a lobster bib.
Yeah. I mean, that was another thing. There was like all these cool designs floating around with sakura blossoms or this or that woven into the theme. And yeah, they go with this like checkered black and white, lobster bib. And
then, remember that one they had before that? They had the one where there was like the copy.
Oh, the guy who stole it from another.
The guy who stole it from some theater or something. Oh God, that was like the worst design I've ever seen in my life.
It was really awful.
What was it? I love the guy's explanation. Let me read it here, just about what that explanation was. It's hilarious because I cringed so hard when I read that. Let me see if I can find it here.
All right.
In the meantime, while I'm looking for this, while we wrap this podcast up, because we're over an hour now.
So,
sorry to keep you for so long.
No, it's all right. I've got the day off. it was a national holiday today in Japan. It was their basically Labor Day, so they're supposed to, of course, give thanks for people who labor. And but I miss Thanksgiving. If you talk about one American holiday I really miss, turkey, gravy, stuffing, man, you just don't get that in Japan.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, I guess this is the Thanksgiving edition episode.
So
That's how you can date this. I'm actually really behind in editing up my episodes for the podcast for Apple Podcasts. So if anybody's been wondering, I mean, yeah, I know you probably don't care because you're probably not avidly waiting. I don't think anybody really is, but maybe they are. Who knows?
I'll plug stuff while you look up things. So if you're interested in sumo at all, the basho is happening right now. Probably, maybe not before Radrey puts this up, but if you watched live, it finishes on Sunday. And we should have a brand new winner that's never won before because the top ranked guys are out of the tournament. So Komusubi is currently in the lead. That's the 4th highest rank. And an Ozeki could win. That's the 2nd highest rank. But you can go over to Jason's in Japan or just type in Jason Sumo on YouTube and you can watch sumo in English on my channel. I just passed 30,000 subscribers, so I'm really happy about that. It's really caught on and become very popular. My Argonauts is still, there's a lot of fun videos there, especially if you are interested in the JET program. I spent a lot of time making videos about becoming a JET, what you need to do to prepare to become one. Then if you do get to be one, what do you have to prepare to come to live in Japan? The information's a little old, but some of it's very evergreen about, what you should bring and blah, blah, blah. And, how the interview goes and whatnot. So, I recommend that if you're interested in the Japan teaching program at all. And sumo on the Sumo channel. Okay, there's my plugs.
All right, I found it after some searching. All right, man, I'm already starting to cringe just like reading some of it. Oh, Jesus. All right, so I know this is horrible for an audio show. I probably should have some video, but I'll just explain it.
Okay.
Nobody knows what the logo looks like. I know, Jason, you know what it looks like.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. So what it looks like, it's a big black bar in the center of the logo, and then there's a little red dot. Not a little red. I mean, like a relatively big sized dot.
Yeah.
On the right, and then in the 2 corners there is like an arrow sign. There's like one that's gold and one that's silver, and then on the bottom it says Tokyo 2020. And it just looks. You just look at you like, what? I don't know. It's just like, it's shapes. Welcome to Tokyo 2020, the shapes design. Anyway, so the designer's name is Kenjiro Sano, who supposedly copied lots of designs. And his explanation for the design, as reads, the black color of the central column represents diversity. The combination of all colors. The shape of the circle represents an inclusive world in which everyone accepts each other. The red circle represents the power of every beating heart. Ah! I can't.
It looked like a T. It was supposed to look like a T for Tokyo. And the red is obviously the rising sun, flag. It was just bad, though. It was. Oh, I'm so glad they got rid of it.
Yeah, this is okay. Yeah, let's move on because this is bad podcast. All right. Let's see. What can we expect for the future of you and your channels on YouTube?
My Argonauts, I usually do a year-end thing where I take the newspaper and I talk about the big domestic news stories of the year and the big international stories as voted on by Japanese readers, so you kind of get a perspective on what's important for Japan. And that I usually do every year. I keep that up. And then the Japan, the Sumo channel, Sumo's every odd-numbered month. So right now it's the 11th month, so we have Sumo. 12th month, December, no Sumo, but it'll be back in January. And it's for a 15-day tournament. So it's pretty long, but you watch it every day. People really get into it, I think, that way because you can just, sit there and eat your Cheerios every morning with Sumo for 2 weeks. And, Yeah, I don't know. For me, I really want to go to see Sumo in Tokyo and maybe come and knock on your door in May of next year. That's kind of like my plan. I've never seen it. I've seen it in Osaka, I've seen it in Nagoya, and I've seen it in Fukuoka, but I've never seen it in Tokyo at the heart, the beating heart and soul of sumo and the Kokugikan. So I really want to go to Tokyo, and I think May is going to be my best chance next year.
Okay, yeah, if you're in town, grab a beer or something, or I don't know. Do you drink beer? Or I don't really drink beer either. You get a coffee or something. Do you do coffee?
I do hot chocolate.
Oh. All right. Well, I guess I'll end it here. Is that okay with you?
That is quite fine. Thank you for everybody that watched.
Yeah, hold on. I guess I got to do the outro.
Okay.
All right, this was a live recording on YouTube. I hopefully you enjoyed. Be sure to, push my buttons. Not to make me angry. Push the right buttons in the right place. I'm going to be evasive, see if anybody understands what that means. Because, you're on the internet, you should know what the right buttons are by now. Yes. Next week on the show is, what's his name? Phoenix 787. It's going to be our first live show. We're not. This is our first live. What am I saying? It's going to be our first show that's not on my sofa. Let me put it that way. It's going to be through. It's going to be through OBS. I tried to do a interview with my parents through OBS. That was a nightmare, and it didn't work. But hopefully, I'm going to be going to his Ginza hub. This is going to be on a Saturday. We're going to test equipment there because he wants to really test out his space. So Stay tuned for that. It'll be live. It'll hopefully look more like a real show and less like Google Hangouts. So, and until then, I'm Radrey.
I'm Jason.
See ya.
See ya. Bye.